Sounds like everybody's having a great time and finding new adventures and discovering things in their backyard. I know we're all struggling with not seeing all of our friends and maybe our family, and disappointment with summer holidays being canceled, but there's a reason for it all, and maybe we'll just find something really special in it this summer. So for the next little while, remember, we're reading a book called The Warrior Prince, and it's by Priscilla Shriver. And last week we learned about Xavier and Evan, who are two brothers who have just moved to a new home. And Evan is scared to jump into the lake, and his brother keeps calling him a chicken. And Xavier's older and good at basketball. And we also met Levi and Brianna, or Bean, who are friends. And we had left them where they had been transported into another place. They weren't sure what was going on. So we're going to start in chapter 3, and it's called Imagining Dragons. So dinner was quiet. Evan didn't want to talk to anyone. He couldn't even look at his brother. Right after dinner, he went to his room and did some major sulking. He'd been to bed early, no basketball at the rec, for something that wasn't even his fault. Well, it wasn't all his fault anyway. He picked up a book he'd been reading, one his father had given him for Christmas last year. He hadn't really liked it at first because it seemed like an old book, and usually he found old books pretty boring. But this book wasn't boring at all. It was about a fierce warrior who was also a prince, and he lived in a place called Adhordius, a beautiful land of giant castles and tall mountains and fanciful creatures that were sometimes frightening. But it was a good story with lots of battles and sword fighting, which was perfect because those were the only kinds of stories that Evan really liked to read. The prince warrior was constantly having to save the kingdom from these awful dragons who kept attacking and burning down his villages with their fiery breath and stealing all the people's gold. Sometimes the prince warrior had to rescue the princesses, who were always getting themselves into one mess or another. Evan didn't really care much about that part. He went to the closet and pulled out his pretend armor. He didn't want his big brother to know that he still played with it. He put on the breastplate, the belt, the helmet. They were only plastic, and they were getting way too small for him. Plus, they were old-fashioned. He wished he could get a newer, cooler set, like from Star Wars or Thor, but he didn't dare ask for that. Xavier would just make fun of him, even though Evan knew for a fact that Xavier still had a cape from his Batman costume that he wore to a party in 6th grade. Evan picked up the wooden sword and shield his grandpa had made for him when Evan was 6. The shield had his initial E emblazoned in gold right in the middle. He swung the sword while he danced around the room, fighting the imaginary dragon that had started to look an awful lot like his brother Xavier. The dragon. Evan, the prince warrior always won. Prince warrior, 1,116,436,000. Dragon, 0. Finally, he got tired. He shoved the armor under his bed with all the other stuff he never bothered to put away, and went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. He heard the door slam downstairs. Xavier was home from basketball. Evan quickly finished in the bathroom and went into his room to put on his pajamas, shutting the door tight. At least they didn't have to share a room anymore, the way they used to in the apartment in the city. He crawled into bed with his book and flashlight to read under the covers. He could hear his brother using the bathroom and getting ready for bed. Clean the toothpaste out of the sink, he thought. Xavier never cleaned the sink. It was disgusting. He waited for Xavier to come into the room to tease him about missing basketball, about being afraid to jump off the dock, and about, anything. There always seemed to be an excuse for Xavier to barge in and torment him, but nothing happened. Evan was sort of disappointed. Maybe Xavier didn't even think about him enough to come in and tease him anymore. When the door finally did open, it was Mom who came in. Evan quickly switched off the flashlight and hid the book under the covers. "Feeling any better?" she asked, sitting down beside him on the bed. He reached under the covers and pulled the book and flashlight out, and she laid them on top of the covers next to Evan's pillow. She wasn't mad, just wanted him to know that she knew, always did. She definitely has eyes in the back of her head, Evan thought. She waited for him to answer. Evan was in no mood for a mum talk. He looked away and pulled the covers up to his chin, and he heard her sigh. Evan, I know you were mad at your brother, but you need to find a way to deal with it other than fighting. These skirmishes have to stop. What's a skirmish? It was like a battle, only shorter, Evan. Do you get what I'm saying? Evan didn't answer. He tried to turn over, but she grabbed his shoulder and pulled him back, forcing him to look at her. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'll try. Evan was sully. No more squishies. Skirmishes. Right. Good. Mom smiled and kissed him on the forehead and got up to leave. Mom? Evan pulled down the covers and Mom turned to look at him. What is it, honey? Do you think I'll ever be in a real battle? Mom's mouth opened slightly. Her eyes filtered around the room like she didn't know quite what to say. Then she sort of smiled. Oh, yes, baby, she said. You already are. I am? Evan sat up, alarmed. Mom came to sit beside him again. You and Xavier. I'm not talking about a skirmish or anything like that. I mean a real battle with swords and stuff. Oh, this is a real battle, Evan. There's a sneaky, malicious enemy that you're always in battle with. Even now? Xavier? No, it's not Xavier. Then who is it? Someone who wants to remain hidden so that you'll forget he's even there. He'll do anything he can do to make you feel like you will never win. Will I win, I mean? Mom thought about it for a while. It won't be easy, she said finally. But just remember this, Evan. No matter what this enemy throws at you, you always have what you need to win. So you never have to be scared. Capiche? She meant, do you understand? Mom had a lot of weird words for stuff. Capiche, Evan said, agreeing even though he wasn't so sure he did understand. But what about this enemy? Oh, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, Mom said, winking at him. Sweet dreams, Evan, love. Once she kissed him goodnight again, she loved gooey kisses. Evan lay back and he pulled the covers up to his chin. Once more, thinking about the real battle sort of scared him. Even though his mom had said he didn't have to be scared. He peered outside at the silver moon, peeking through the branches of the big old oak. The moon was huge, bigger than he'd ever seen it. Full, he started to imagine himself in the shiny armor, a prince warrior riding a white horse through the mist towards some big castle on top of a high mountain. What a cool picture that would be. He thought about getting up and getting out his colored pencils and drawing it. The moon, the trees, the mountain, Prince Evan on a white horse. He yawned. Maybe tomorrow. His eyes closed. Get up! Evan sprang upward, his book and flashlights falling to the floor with a thud. What? He rubbed his eyes, searching for the owner of the voice. Was it a voice? He couldn't be sure. The room was dark. Eerie shadows moved around him, shadows of the tree branches in the yard shifting under the moon. Hurry! Yes, a voice, soft, whispery, yet loud at the same time, filling his whole head. Come! A shadow darted across the room. Not a tree branch shadow, but a creature sort of shadow. A raccoon? A cat? No, too big for that, but too small for a person. The shadow jumped to the windowsill. In the moonlight, Evan could make out the flow of a garment, like a robe, a purple robe. The shadow creature turned away, revealing a glowing symbol on its back. Evan's mouth opened and closed involuntarily. The symbol was the same one that was on the cover of his book, the book about Hortius. Who are you? He wanted to ask, but no words came to his mouth. It wouldn't open at all. He just stared. The creature's head swiveled around, but Evan could not make out a face in the hood, as if the hood was actually empty. Hurry, before it's too late. Too late? Evan's words started working, but each one seemed to take forever to come out. For what? Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open and Xavier stomped in. Evan, there was this thing in my room. Evan's eyes flickered to his brother, who wore a wide-eyed expression. He turned back to the creature sitting in the window. So he sees it too. I'm not imagining it. Very slowly, Evan lifted his arms until his fingers pointed directly to the silhouette of the thing sitting on the sill. He heard Xavier gasp, "What is it?" He was having the same trouble with words that Evan had. The creature spoke impatiently. "Prince Evan, Prince Xavier, follow me, quickly!" And then it happened, out the window, the second-floor window. Evan glanced at his brother's frozen face. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe they both had, but Evan didn't think so. He was suddenly filled with curiosity. He had to know what that creature was and what the big hurry was all about. Evan jumped out of bed and headed for the windowsill. "Wait, what are you doing?" Xavier hissed at him. "He said we had to go with him," Evan replied. The curtains of the window blew righteously around as if the storm was blowing outside. Evan looked out, scanning the darkness. The creature was nowhere to be seen, but there was something else, something glowing in the night air. There it was again, the same symbol from the book. It was huge, transparent, yet somehow solid, shimmering as it spun slowly, suspended in space. He heard the voice again, "Come." Evan, "You can't jump. You'll break your legs." Xavier had come up beside him. He saw it too, the weird glowing object hovering in the air. "What is it?" His voice trailed off. "Maybe it's a dream," Evan thought. It had to be, in which case, what harm could it do to follow the shadow creature and see what was happening next? "Let's go," Evan said. "Wait," Xavier nearly shouted, but Evan ignored him. It was only a dream, and he jumped. Evan only dropped down a few inches before his feet hit the ground. Weird. And then his feet started to sink into thick, black muck. Mud maybe, but different, sticky, more like cake batter. He turned around to face the window that he had just jumped out of, but it wasn't there anymore. The whole house was gone. He looked up, and above him the sky was a bright red. Not a peaceful sunset red. It was a bright, fiery red, like the sun had bled its colors all over the universe. He looked to his right and to his left. All around him stood tall trees with large black leaves, so close together that they didn't seem to have any light between them. The trees were growing, getting taller as he watched, thicker, sprouting black leaves, blocking out the red sky. They encircled him like a giant, hideous soldiers, closing in. He was completely surrounded. He heard a squishy, goopy sound and turned to see his brother standing in the cake batter next to him. Evan was surprised to see fear in Xavier's wide eyes. He'd always thought Xavier wasn't afraid of anything. They looked at each other, but neither spoke, all their combined emotions muddling together and making it hard to know what to think or do. The silence for a brief moment was deafening. Then the purple-robed creature appeared before them, making them both nearly jump out of their skins. "Follow me." The creature plunged into the circle of thickening trees, its gait a sort of waddling glide, half leaping, half running like a turkey trying to fly. As it went, the leaves of the trees changed from the black to a vivid purple, dripping like fresh paint as if they had been stained by the creature's robe. "We need to go that way," Evan said, indicating the purple leaves. "But how? There's no path or anything." This was true. Around them, the huge black trees loomed, growing even taller, and the little splash of purple leaves seemed like their only hope. "It said to follow. That's where it went, so let's go." Evan used all his strength to make his feet work, pulling them out of the cake battery muck to take a step forward. It wasn't as hard as he thought it would be. He took another step, heading for the splotch of purple and the dense wall of trees. He noticed the purple leaves beginning to tremble, as if stirred by a sudden wind. But as he got closer, he realized that they were actually parting, revealing a narrow pathway marked by more purple leaves. The creature appeared at the end of the purple trail, glowing as if from its own inner light, still moving quickly and yet somehow never quite out of sight. Evan turned to Xavier. "Let's go this way." "Coming." The two boys started to run towards the purple path, Evan leading the way for once. It was like running in molasses, like one of those dreams where someone is chasing you, but you can't seem to get away. But once they started, it became easier. They found as they picked up speed, their feet didn't stick anymore, like they were running on top of the mud, feeling the wet splashes up their pajama pant legs. Before them, the purple leaves trembled and parted, leaning away from the path as if to welcome them and give them room to pass through. Evan thought they were actually waving at him, calling out, this way, up ahead, just barely visible. The little guy in the purple robe continued to zigzag through the trees, drenching the leaves in purpleness as he went, opening up a path for them to follow. Hey, wait up, said Xavier. He was having trouble keeping up with Evan, which was definitely a new thing. Evan found he was starting to like this dream a tiny bit. Then a loud rumble sounded overhead, stopping Evan in his tracks. Was it thunder? But the rumble didn't stop. It grew and it grew, making a huge tree around them quake as if with fear. Evan looked up at the sky, which was changing from the bright red to a purple black, like a bad bruise. Xavier caught up, panting. What's that? Evan didn't answer. He was too scared to speak. They heard a loud crack, and then a tree right next to them split open, its edges glowing red with the embers from the roaring fire. Lightning, Xavier said, but not normal lightning. This was lightning, was way too close, as if it was aiming straight for them. Another crack, and another nearby tree split and shriveled, burnt to a crisp in an instant. Watch out, Xavier cried. They dodged out of the way as the blackened tree began to topple over, crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. Evan felt his courage evaporate. If this was a dream, it was getting way too scary. The deadly lightning was falling trees, the growing rumble that seemed to shake the forest to its roots, the ominous blackening of the sky. Evan wanted to wake up now. He felt his brother's hand on his shoulder. Let's keep going, Xavier said, as if knowing what Evan was thinking. Just don't look back, whatever you do. Evan nodded, fighting back tears. He wouldn't let Xavier see that, that's for sure. He looked towards the purple leaves, the trail that seemed to be their only way forward. The darkness was closing in around them. Evan heard the creature's voice in his head, kind of like his own, but different somehow, deeper, more certain of itself. Stay on the trail. Don't look back, it said. So Evan didn't. Xavier couldn't just make out the little creature in the robe darting this way and that way, drenching the leaves of the trees in brilliant purple as he went. How did it move so fast? Xavier couldn't even tell if it had legs. He kept checking to make sure Evan was still with him. He couldn't lose his brother. Mom would kill him. Mom, Dad, where were they? What was this world he and his brother had jumped into? He glanced up at the purple-red sky, which seemed to be moving and swirling almost like a storm gathering, a bad one. All around them, trees were splitting open, glowing red, and then shriveling, falling, and sending out billows of ashes. Charred, smoldering branches rained down on either side of them, so close Xavier could feel the hot embers prickling his skin. He swatted at them as if they were alive, like swarming mosquitoes. Maybe Evan was right. Maybe this really was a dream and nothing bad could happen to them. Maybe. But Xavier had never felt shivering in his soul like this in any other dream before. He heard a high-pitched yelp and turned to see Evan trapped beneath a fallen tree branch. Above him, the rest of the seared trees were creaking and popping as if starting to tip over. Xavier ran back to Evan, who was clawing the thick muck to free himself. I'm stuck, Evan said, panicked now as the fallen tree loomed over him. Xavier lifted the branch and grabbed hold of his brother, ripping the bottom of Evan's pants leg as he pulled him out. The boys scrambled away just as the tree crashed behind them in the fountain of glowing ash. Ouch! Evan wiped some ash off his arm where it had burned his skin a little. You okay? Xavier asked. Yeah, I think so. Xavier tried to look at Evan's arm, but his brother pulled away roughly. Don't stop. the voice again in their heads, bouncing off the trees. Xavier and Evan lurched once more towards the purple path. Behind them, the falling trees made hideous noises like agonizing screams. Do trees feel pain? Xavier wondered. It sounded to him like the whole world was crying out in terror and fear, the darkness closing in on them. Where are we going? When are we going to get there? Will this ever end? He wondered. Then, suddenly, it did. The trail opened to a large body of water, its still surface reflecting the blotched red and purple sky. The water seemed to have no end, as big as an ocean stretching to the stormy horizon. It was eerily calm in the contrast to the backdrop of crashing trees and crackling lightning, an even growing rumble like an earthquake gathering under their feet. The water didn't move, not even a ripple. "Whoa," said Evan. He was panting, his hands on his knees. He glanced behind him, posed to bolt if necessary. Where do we go now? Xavier had no answer. It seemed as if they were trapped between the black trees and the tranquil water. There was nowhere else to go. Follow me. Both boys jumped, turning their attention to the lake. There, hovering over the mirror-like surface of the water, was the purple-robed creature. Into the water. The voice boomed, nearly drowning out the sounds of the chaos behind him, and then the creature just disappeared, like it was sucked right into the water. Into the water? Xavier took a breath, wondering what it meant. "He'll come back, right?" said Evan. He had to shout to make himself heard over the noise of the world collapsing behind them. "He just went to get us a boat." "Under the water," Xavier shouted back. "You think maybe he went to get us a submarine?" "It's just a dream," Evan cried, lifting his head with a newfound confidence, as if he was trying to convince himself it was like a kingdom quest. "So we're dreaming. We're in a video game, both of us, together?" "Sure," said Evan. "Why not? Anything can happen in a dream. Hey, look." Evan pointed to the water, and Xavier looked. The still surface had begun to ripple slightly, changing color. An image appeared on the water, golden, as if it touched by an unseen sun. "It's that thing from my book again," Evan cried, pointing. "Let's go." "You're going in?" asked Xavier. He couldn't believe it. Was this the same kid who earlier that day had been afraid to jump into the pond? And then he remembered this was a dream. That's what Evan thought, anyway, although it seemed less and less like a dream to Xavier. Another jolt of lightning cracked right over their heads. The rumbling sound had become deafening. Xavier had the impression that some giant boulder was rolling straight towards them, flattening everything in its path. "Hurry!" Evan cried. He turned and leaped into the water with both feet. "Evan!" Xavier tried to grab his brother, but he was already gone, the water swallowing him up, closing over him like a door. Xavier was left standing helplessly at the edge of the lake. He thought he saw a faint tinge of red appear on the glassy surface. He hoped he would wake up soon before this dream got any worse. We're going to end there today, guys. And next week, we're going to be doing Into the Cave. And as we go into the week and we're settling into summer holidays, if there's anything that you need, you have my email address and the emails that are sent out to you, my phone number. If you need to talk about anything, give us a call. And we're here for you. If you're feeling lonely, if you can't get a hold of any of your friends, maybe we can stop by and have a visit in your driveway one day. So take care of yourselves, take care of your brothers and sisters and your mom and dad, and do your best in staying out of trouble. And we will see you next week. Have a great week.